a somewhat related question. I forget how to say the name. Derez. Do you believe that? Do you believe? This is sort of an odd question because I don't know. Maybe it's something that you said at some point. I don't know. Do you believe that engineering is the quote most financially stable space in the industry?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
No.
I don't think it is at all.
I think it's the least for most.
Engineering is a very tough part, and it's something that you've talked about a lot. You talked about the conversation stuff back when you were doing events. You were doing a lot for engineers specifically, so you can speak on it much more than I can as I interrupt you to say what I think. But it's,
I can reframe the question to be a better question.
Reframe it.
I don't know if there's a way, actually. I'm a little bit...
Here's my perspective on engineering as someone who is not primarily a recording engineer, is that, or a mix engineer. It's really tough. I think engineering as a gig is so has been so tied to commercial studios, as we talked about, in the commercial studio business, because so many people have Apollos and SM7s, or have, home rigs like this or home rigs like you have. The commercial studio business has gone down, so the need for full-time engineers or staff at these studios has gone down tremendously. So the idea of being an engineer, a recording engineer, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if anybody tracks it, but those numbers have to continue to go down and down and down, or have been going down for years. And so the value of great engineers hasn't gone away, but the availability of job openings, like infrastructure, has gone down a ton. So I think engineering in particular is a very tough.
I don't fully agree because independent engineers are finding their way into the rooms with producers, right? So
yeah, it might be true.
Producer, a lot of producers have their own engineers. So that, maybe they have a team of producers, so they need a team of engineers, and then they have like the head engineer that runs the studios for, a producer that has 3 studios and 6 producers signed to them. I think there's ways in. I think the traditional,
definitely.
So this is how I want to come at this is when it comes to mixers, because yes, it can become stable at a certain point, because when I think what if it's in reference to anything I've said, I think the reason why I said what I said about the stability factor is that at some point, the majority of the records that I worked on, that I was hired to mix, came out. Therefore, they have to then pay for them. Versus when I'm talking about the production, the speculative nature of the production, at the last minute, the production can be scratched and no one gets paid for it. So I noticed the trajectory in my career, in my life, that I was getting paid more consistently for mixing. Now, this is after a long time of not getting paid for mixing, right? So, or getting paid very little bit, barely enough to sustain. So stable wouldn't be the word that I would talk. I would say consistent at some point. So this is what I mean. Why it's hard to get to that level is I would say there are 5 people mixing a lot of the music that is highly successful. And then there are 15 mixers mixing a lot of the rest of it.
I love this breakdown.
Right? There are 5 people that are mixing most of the big records that we hear. And then there are 15.
Do you have those 5 in mind, or you're just saying
what up, Tume?
5?
Yeah, I have the 5 in mind. Serban, Manny, Spike, Tom Elmhurst, and I want to say Tony's in that crew. Right? Those are 5 people that are mixing so much of the music we listen to on a regular basis. And then there's 15 others. One of them just jumped in the chat, Alex Tume. Alex is in the group. Bane's in the group, right? Like there's 15 people, probably I would say, that are mixing and I'm not going to list everybody. I could write a list down and, and I can have positive things to say about all of them, and they're all working really hard. But there's probably tens of, and Jason should be in that top 5 right now too. Sorry. But there are tens of thousands of people that want to be doing it, and that's what I'm saying. So the consistency comes when you hit maybe that top 20, top 50. You're like, oh, and even then, it's still really hard. Yeah, and I thanks Alex and everyone for doubling down. Jason Joshua for sure, top 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slaying the game right now.
And it's important for people to understand that are coming into it that engineers, mix engineers, when you get to the point where you have consistent work, that's the most financially stable in the narrow place that we're talking about. But also, as you and I have talked about, you don't get the same potential back end, although, now you can get a point on things and that sort of thing. But the potential back end is if you're a producer or a songwriter, where those people don't get paid nearly as consistently. Songwriters generally don't get paid at all until a song comes out and generates money. That's why they sign publishing deals. So companies give them advances to live until they start generating royalties. Producers get advances, but also they're sort of like in between an engineer and a songwriter in terms of their revenue stream. But you're absolutely right that certainly in my life, there are times where I won't get any money for a month or two just because I'm getting paid on a project, but the money won't show up for a couple months, or I'm just writing a ton of songs and things don't get cut, or things get cut a year later or something like that. So in terms of consistent income, engineering is potentially much more stable, whereas for long-term back-end could be. It's important for people to understand the structural differences between.
I made a lot more money 2 months ago than I made last month.
Yeah.
So then I got to be better at saving money and caring about that, right? So there's a push and pull there too.
Less champagne, John. Less champagne.
I know that is the key, isn't it? Yeah.
That shit can get expensive, bro. You go.
I want to touch before we move on. I want to touch something that Alex just wrote in the chat, because I fuck with this hard, and I'm putting it into practice on my end, and I'm sure he is as well. We all got to work less and charge more, so people are in the mix. So more people are in the mix. Like if someone can't hit my budget, I have Ingmar do it, or I'm going to have Josh do it as he comes up, right? Like or if I just think someone is really much better for the gig, and and they're more affordable at this point, I'm going to send it their way, because more people need to work and more people need to get the reps in at high level and get feedback from their release, right? There's reps of practicing songs that like maybe 100 to 1,000 people hear. Then there's the second level of reps that like hundreds of thousands to millions of people hear. So you're getting real-time feedback that people are even liking the songs that you're a part of. Yeah. And so we have to level up engineers in that way too. And so I love that Alex said that, because I feel that, and I'm definitely doing it. Which sometimes is hard, because sometimes I love the records that are coming through at a lower price point, but to value myself and my peers like Alex at a certain place, I have to say no.
Well, this is something that is great for people like you and Alex and me, although I'm not a mixer for the most part, or a pure mixer. It is important to look out for the community, because the role that we have in the industry is very, very competitive and can easily turn into people undercutting each other. And so I think it's really beautiful that Alex comes on here. I hung out with him in New York. You guys are close, talking to Baines, talking to all these other people that are great young mixers, although hugely accomplished mixers, young compared to the people that we looked up to when we were teenagers. But that everybody's looking out for each other, and there really is a community of people and that are, positively trying to impact each other, coming up and
I would put just so someone, I was going to say, someone's saying Ali's in that other 15. Ali is definitely in the list, but he's not in the top 5 because he's not consistently on the Hot 100. He's not consistently there like the other people that I've mentioned that are there every week. Something is hitting in that realm for them. So Ali is one of the best in the game. Shout out. I mean, one of my favorite, one of my top 3. Like he's the best, but he's still young. He will be there. We will be there. Right. That's how I'm feeling the slow growth trajectory for engineers. I don't think it's as fast as, you produced a hit. So now you're at the top of the game, and then you're going to get all these records. Like as an engineer, as a mix engineer, if you get one hit, people start coming to you for things, but they're not coming to you that consistently. Like Rob Kanelski, amazing mixer, did Billie Eilish. Well, Rob is now consistently getting work from that kind of aesthetic, and And then because of that, another one of those artists will have success and bring him up with it. But he's now consistently working. He's been consistently working for a while, but because of Billy, he is now even more stable than there. But he is not going to be in the top 5 until he has 10 Billies, like Serban has had 100. You know what I mean? Like there's levels to the game even at the high level. That's why I say there's 15 others that are very consistently working and making stable income. That's where this conversation
we're not talking about how good someone is or their
Yes.
skill set. We're talking about their level of career success thus far. And a lot of these people that I think are the best, I mean, again, I don't want to go names of who's better than others, but there are people in that other 15 that I think are the best mixers. They just are younger and so haven't had 2 decades of success yet, but presumably they will.